So hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to Phoenix What If. So we are back with a brand new movie on what if Naruto fell in love with Masaki Kurosaki. But before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. Ichigo sat up from his bed in a flash. He was panting lightly and sweat dripped from his forehead. The boy brought his hand up to his chest and took a deep breath. It's the same thing every night. The voices call out to me. What does it mean? He thought to himself. He was brought out of his thoughts when a loud voice called his name. Ichigo Kurosaki. He heard. His eyes darted to his closed bedroom door. He could hear the person's footsteps get closer to his door. His door flung open in a flash. Ichigo winced from the natural sunlight that was shining through the windows in the next room. Wake up, my handsome strawberry, the person said enthusiastically. It's way too early for this, Mom, Ichigo groaned as he rubbed his eyes. Masaki Kurosaki, mother of Ichigo Kurosaki, puffed her cheeks. Looks like someone woke up on the wrong side of the bed today. She placed both hands on her hips and shook her head. No one's ever going to marry my little man with an attitude like that. Ichigo's cheeks flushed with color. I'm not little, he mumbled. Masaki giggled at her son's embarrassment. Ah, you're right. My lil Ichi is becoming a strong young man. Masaki turned 180 degrees and made her way back to the kitchen of their small apartment. It's time to get up. I need you to pick up some groceries from the market. Ichigo got out of bed and stretched his arms, back, and legs. He made his way to the bathroom and did his normal routine. Expel waste, shower and brush his teeth. He went back into his room and went through his closet. He picked out a plain white tee and black slim pants. He slipped on a pair of straw sandals. The boy made his way to the kitchen. All ready to go out, darling? His mom asked sweetly. Ichigo nodded his head. His mother smiled and handed him a grocery list. Here's everything I need. Make sure you get everything. Understand? Yes, Mom. Everything. I got it. He sighed unenthusiastically. He headed for the front door of their apartment and opened the door. Be safe, Ichi-kun. His mother waved as he closed the door behind him. He squinted as his eyes adjusted to the bright sunlight. Once his eyes adjusted, he took in his surroundings. Civilians flooded the streets. It was always busy around. Even at night there was always something going on. Ichigo turned to his right and started walking towards the market. Ichigo. Strawberry. Kurosaki as usual. The others around him stared at him. Some recognized him, some didn't. The ones who recognized him knew his reputation around the small neighborhood of the district, and the ones who didn't questioned the boy's looks, more specifically his orange hair and menacing scowl. 14 years old, he found his way to the market and picked up everything his mother needed. Thankfully, she didn't need much this time. Hair. Orange Ichigo decided to take the long route home. It had been a while since he stopped by to see his childhood friend, and her place was on the way, so he figured he would stop by and see how she was doing. She had been very busy lately with some stupid exam or tournament going on. He hadn't listened to her story. Her occupation never interested Ichigo much. Eyes. Brown. The young boy finally made it to his destination. He gazed at the abundance of flowers that were displayed out. His vision was filled with multiple bright colors. His eyes traveled to the sign hanging above the store. Yamanaka Flowers, he read. He could see someone inside of the shop. It was a girl with pink hair. She was wearing a kipao dress and green shorts. The dress had short sleeves, slits along the sides, and a white circular symbol on the back. He couldn't see her face, for she was facing away from him, however he knew who the girl was. Sakura? He said with a raised eyebrow. Is that you? Sakura turned towards the boy. Her lips curled into a smile when she saw who called her name. Ichigo, she said happily. Long time no see. She walked over to the boy. Yeah, it's been a while. Your hair, it's shorter, Ichigo noted. Sakura's eyes widened somewhat. She brought her right hand up to her hair and twirled a few strands between her fingers. Yeah. Some events happened recently and I had to cut it. Events, huh? He noticed that she had a few bruises on her arms and legs. I almost didn't recognize you. I haven't seen you with short hair since we were kids. I think it suits you. Sakura's cheeks lightly flushed from the compliment. Thanks, Strawberry, she said jokingly. Ichigo rolled his eyes. What are you doing here, anyways? It looked like you were going to buy some flowers. I've never seen you buy flowers here. You're usually here to cause a commotion with Ino. He mumbled the last part to himself. Sakura blushed, remembering her reason for being at her rival's shop. I'm, just picking up some flowers for my mom. Yeah, for mom. Ichigo's eyebrow rose. Why is she acting so nervous? Liar. Ichigo and Sakura's heads turned to the inside of the shop. Behind the counter stood Ino Yamanaka in her normal purple outfit. She's buying flowers for Sasuke. She's going to visit him in the hospital. Sakura's cheeks burned once again and her eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. You're not gonna get a leg up on me. Ino huffed as she jumped over the shop's counter. She made her way in between Ichigo and Sakura and nudged Sakura with her elbow. I'm going with you. Sakura glared at Ino. Ino. You wretched piglet, Sakura growled. Ino turned around to face Ichigo. And you? She pointed her finger in Ichigo's face. Where have you been? You don't come to visit anymore. You better not be fooling around with some girl. I'll tell Auntie. Ichigo's eyebrow twitched. He pushed Ino's hand out of his face. You're the one who's been out and about since you graduated from the academy. Ino crossed her arms underneath her chest and huffed. Yeah, well, it's hard being a ninja. If we're not training, we're on missions, and if we're not on missions, we're training even more. You wouldn't understand since you're not a ninja. Occupation. Civilian of Konoha. Ichigo rolled his eyes. Right. Even if I could be a ninja, I wouldn't become one. It was Ino's turn to roll her eyes. Yeah, you tell me all the time. Ichigo looked at the top of Ino's head and rose an eyebrow. What happened to your hair? You cut it too? He pointed to Ino's bun. Ino jumped slightly and crossed her arms. Some events happened and I cut it. Why are girls so vague? Ichigo thought to himself. She turned back to Sakura. Don't think I forgot about you. I'm not going to lose to you, forehead girl. Sakura gained a vein on top of her head. We'll see about that, Ino pig. Ichigo sighed. Every time the two girls were around each other they would argue about Sasuke. So what is it with him now? You said he was in the hospital? Ino and Sakura looked at Ichigo. Yeah, Ino started. He got into some trouble during the second part of the Chunin exams. Hopefully he'll recover before the final part. Right. It was the Chunin exams. That's what Ino called them, the young boy thought to himself. Ino glanced down at the bags in her friend's hands. Auntie make you go grocery shopping? Ino snickered. Stop calling her that. It's weird, and yeah. Speaking of, I should probably get going. She's gonna flip for taking so long. Ichigo sighed. Did you come here for a reason? Sakura asked. Just came by to say hi to Ino pig. Ichigo shrugged his shoulders. Oh. You do care about me. Ino sighed happily, ignoring the infamous nickname. Yeah. Whatever. I gotta get going. Ichigo turned around and headed home. It was good seeing you two. I'll see y'all around. Ichigo waved his hand at the two as he walked away. Bye Strawberry-kun. Ino stuck her tongue out playfully. Bye Ichigo. Sakura smiled. The two watched as their friend's figure faded in the distance. It was good to see a couple familiar faces. Everything's been so boring now that everyone's doing their own thing. Ichigo sighed to himself. Ichigo went into a deep thought as he made his way back home. TCH. Some of Ino and Sakura's friends who are in the ranks are either idiots, crazy, or brats. His thoughts went to a certain family friend of his. That bonehead falls in all three categories. Finally home, he mumbled. He turned the doorknob to his small apartment and walked in. I'm home. Ichigo walked in to place the two bags he had on the coffee table. Welcome back, Ichi-kun. He heard his mother say. Ichigo turned towards her and he realized they weren't the only two in their apartment. Sitting at the dining table along with his mother was a beautiful woman with long, red hair. She had blue eyes and was wearing a high-collared, sleeveless blouse under a long, loose-fitting dress with a wristband on her left wrist and standard shinobi sandals. Kushina-san, he said in a surprised tone, I didn't know you'd be here. Ichigo-kun. The woman beamed. It feels like I haven't seen you in forever. In a flash, the woman jumped out of her seat and wrapped the young boy in a tight hug. Too tight. Ichigo breathed out. Masaki giggled at her son's startled expression. She started to get a little worried when Ichigo's face turned slightly blue. Kushina-chan. He can't breath, she sweat dropped. Kushina let go of the boy. Goddamn this woman. Ichigo hunched over slightly and panted heavily. I'm sorry, Ichigo-kun, Kushina said sheepishly. It's okay, Ichigo mumbled. Kushina took her seat next to Masaki and Ichigo took a seat across from them. How was your adventure, Ichi-kun? You took a while, Masaki noted. Sorry. I took the long way home and stopped by Ino's just to say hi. Sakura was there too so we talked for a bit. Ichigo explained. Masaki rose an eyebrow. Ino-chan and Sakura-chan huh? I haven't seen them in a while. How are they? Fine, I guess. Ichigo shrugged. They're participating in the Chunin exams, or something. Ah, that's right. I forgot Sakura-chan was on Naruto-kun's team along with the young Uchiha. His mother remembered. Ichigo rose an eyebrow. Team? Ichigo was so uneducated in the field of the shinobi. Masaki turned to Kushina. How's Naruto-kun faring in the exams? I heard they're strict this year. Kushina gained a worried look on her face. Him and his team are doing well so far. He's been training non-stop with Jiraiya-san for the past few days for the final part. Ichigo and Masaki had surprised looks on their faces. That pervert? He's back? Ichigo asked. Masaki shot him a glare. Not nice, Ichi-kun. Is Jiraiya-san actually back? Why, when did he come back? He said he's here for more research on his novel, Kushina explained. He's only been back for a few days. As soon as he came back Naruto-kun begged Jiraiya-san to start training. Kushina chuckled. Geez, I've been cooped up in this apartment for so long, Masaki whined. So many things are going on around us and I haven't even noticed. How's the blockhead been outside of the oh-so-great shinobi world, Kushina-san? I haven't seen him since he graduated from the academy. Ichigo propped his arm up on the table and leaned his head on his hand. Kushina chuckled at the orange-haired boy's attitude. He's all right. He's been more fired up than ever since the incident with Mizuki-sensei. After coming home from the Land of Waves, he's been training really hard to get stronger. Land of Waves, huh? Ichigo replied in a bored tone. I don't know much about the incident with this Mizuki, but Mom did say Naruto kicked his ass. And the Land of Waves. I guess the blockhead is growing up. Well, if you excuse me, Ichigo said while getting up from his chair, I'm going to head out for a bit. Maybe meet up with Shikamaru to play shogi if he's not doing anything. Ichigo walked towards the front door. It was good seeing you, Kushina-san. Tell Naruto I said, hi, bye Mom, he said. I'll make sure to tell him, Ichigo-kun. Kushina smiled. Don't stay out too late, Ichi-kun. Be back before dinner, Masaki pleaded. They watched the young teen close the door behind him. Masaki glanced at the bags of groceries on the coffee table. He didn't put the groceries away. Masaki whined. She got up from the table and grabbed the bags. She went into kitchen and started putting things away. Masaki-chan, Kushina whispered from the dining table. How's he been? I know Ichigo-kun hasn't been himself lately. But ever since Naruto and the others graduated, it seems like he's choosing to distance himself from Naruto and the others. Masaki finished putting away the groceries. She turned to Kushina and had a worried look on her face. Honestly, I don't know. He's always been my cute little Ichi. Always by my side 24/7. He was such a cute little mama's boy, but you're right, he's been acting strange towards everyone. Masaki explained. Do you think he wants to be a shinobi? Like the others? I don't think so. He's strong-willed like his father. He wouldn't feel envious. I think he just doesn't want to feel useless. He doesn't want to be forgotten. Masaki crossed her arms underneath her bust. He's getting older now. Are you going to tell him th? No, Masaki shouted. The air around Masaki and Kushina became heavy. No, Masaki whispered. I will not tell him anything. The less he knows the better. For his sake, mine, and for Konoha. Special skills? None. Kushina looked down at the ground. She didn't mean to offend her friend. I'm sorry, Masaki. I shouldn't have said anything. No, it's fine Kushina. I just lost my temper, Masaki mumbled. I just don't want him to get hurt. I know that sooner or later he'll unlock his powers. It's just that. When that time comes, I want to be strong enough to protect him from whatever wants to harm him. Kushina got up from her chair in a flash, somewhat startling Masaki. You don't have to worry. Didn't I promise you all those years ago that I would protect you too with my life? That includes Naruto too. He'll be right my side. We're a family, so we need to watch each other's backs. Databane. Kushina finished her short speech with a bright smile and a waved fist in the air. Masaki giggled at Kushina's goofy expression. Thank you, Kushina. That means a lot. Masaki smiled. Her smile faded when her thoughts traveled to her son. Something tells me he's going to unleash his powers in the near future. I need to make sure I keep a close eye on him. It had been several days since Kushina had visited. Ichigo, along with Kushina and Masaki, were sitting in the stands of Konoha Stadium. It was the first day of the final part of the Chunin exams. Kushina invited Masaki and Ichigo to cheer Naruto on, since his match was first. Ichigo refused right away, stating that he would rather read all of Jiraiya's shitty novels than go to the stupid tournament. He received a pinch on the cheek from Kushina and a pulling of the ear from Masaki. Ichigo sat with a bored expression on his face. He was listening to the proctor explain the rules and the match lineups. His eyes went to Naruto. He slightly smirked. Same old stupid orange jumpsuit. Same old dumb whiskers. The headband is new though. There's no way the brat can beat the Hyuga child. It's like putting a worm against a snake. It's honestly embarrassing for him to even try. Ichigo glared at the person who was speaking. It was a random civilian. He was an older man. There was another man sitting next to him. That demon is going to lose for sure. No doubt about it, the man said. Pricks. Ichigo thought. He glanced at his mother and Kushina. They heard the men too. They both had veins popping on their heads. It was a miracle that they didn't say anything to the men. They usually would beat the crap out of anyone that would talk badly about Ichigo or Naruto. Ichigo brought his attention back to the center of the arena. In the middle stood Naruto, Neji Hyuga, and the proctor. The other genin took their seats in the spectator booths. Naruto was glaring at the Hyuga. The Hyuga had a smirk on his face. Have anything to say? The Hyuga taunted. Naruto stood there in silence for a few seconds. I've said this before, he started. He raised a fist and pointed it at Neji. I vow to win. Naruto finished with a growl. The two fighters were locked in a death stare. The veins around Neji's temples began to flare and harden. Kushina couldn't hold it in anymore. She wished her son good luck before the match and told him that no matter what happened she'd be right by his side. She told herself to contain her emotions and not let loose, but she couldn't do it. Kushina got up from her seat. Naruto-kun, she exclaimed, getting the attention of the blonde, as well as many of the other spectators. You can win. I believe in you. Kick that brat's butt, Databane. Ichigo and Masaki sweat dropped at the redhead's outburst. The other spectators around her started whispering things like, did she really just call Neji Hyuga a brat? Or, what is she thinking? Ichigo chuckled at their remarks. He brought his attention to Naruto. He was staring back up at them. He gave them a bright smile and a thumbs up. Oba-san and Carrot Top are here too. There's no way I can lose now. Naruto thought to himself. He wanted to prove to them that he was a great shinobi. The proctor waited until the spectators quieted down before he started the match. After a minute or so, the stands were quiet again. Now let the match begin. The proctor yelled as he jumped away from the two fighters. I can't wait to see the despair in your eyes. When the truth finally dawns on you that you can't defeat me, Neji smirked as he took his fighting stance. Naruto gained a smirk of his own. Quit yapping. Let's fight. Naruto took his own stance. Ichigo watched intently. He was interested in Naruto's abilities. He didn't know much about his skills. The Hyugas too. He somewhat knew about the Byakugan. That was really it. He did believe in the idiot though. As much as Naruto annoyed him, he was still a friend. A close one at that. Ichigo could almost call him a brother. But that was a stretch. He believed in the blonde boy. Ichigo watched as Naruto formed a hand sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto exclaimed. 4 puffs of smoke appeared around Naruto and stepped out 4 clones of Naruto. Shadow clones? Masaki asked in a shocked tone. That's a Junin technique. I'm surprised he's able to pull that off. let alone 4 producing 4 clones. Teehee. That's my boy, Kushina smiled. The 4 clones charged at Neji. The Hyuga jumped over the first 2 while smashing their heads on the ground. Once he was back on the ground, he jumped again and kicked the remaining 2 clones. The first pair of clones charged again with kunai in their hands. They aimed for Neji's back, however the Hyuga caught their hands and elbowed them in their faces. Neji swung around to palm the 2 clones in their chests, sending them back to the original Naruto. All of the shadow clones deactivated. You want to become Hokage, right? Neji asked with a smirk on his face. I don't think that's going to happen, he taunted. From the stands, Masaki, Kushina, and Ichigo's eyebrows knitted into deep scowls. They knew how much Naruto wanted to become Hokage. I can tell with these eyes of mine, Neji continued, abilities and talents are determined at birth. In other words, your entire destiny is set from the time you're born. Why are you so stubborn? Naruto growled, you're always so sure that the future is full of doom and gloom. Why? Well, are you saying that anyone can become Hokage if they try hard enough? Only a select few shinobi are ever even considered for Hokage. Wake up and face reality. Those who will become Hokage are born with that fate. You can't get there by trying. You have to be preselected. All of us have only one thing in common. One shared fate. Neji's became hard. Death, he finished solemnly. Ichigo's eyes widened at that. Grr. Well, so what? I guess I'm just a sore loser. Naruto weaved his signature hand sign and summoned more clones. I'm not an idiot, you know. I've seen through your pattern of attacks already. Neji stated. I told you. You shouldn't make assumptions about the future. Naruto and all of his clones charged at Neji, throwing strikes, punches, and kicks. Nothing was landing. Ichigo watched as the Hyuga dodged every single attack. The Hyuga made his way through the clones, finally getting to the Naruto that was hanging back behind the others. Dodge, you idiot, Ichigo mentally screamed. He watched as Neji struck Naruto. Naruto hunched over and began to cough up blood. I told you it was useless. Neji backed away from Naruto. Naruto chuckled, and I told you. Naruto lifted his head. A toothy grin was plastered on his face. I told you to not make so many assumptions. The Naruto that Neji, and everyone else, thought was real, was actually a clone. The clone deactivated and from behind Neji sprouted 2 Narutos. They tried punching Neji, however the Hyuga spun 360 degrees, and as he did, he expelled his chakra, causing a sphere to form around the Hyuga's body. What the hell was that? Ichigo asked shocked. He looked at his mom and family friend to see that they were shocked too, just not as much as him. 8 trigrams. Palm rotation. Kushina answered. I'm surprised a boy so young is able to pull off a jutsu like that. Come on Naruto-kun. You can do it. You're finished, Neji said flatly. You are within the boundaries of my 8 trigrams. Neji closed his eyes. In his mind, he envisioned the 8 trigrams circle. Neji then took a fighting stance. Gentle fist. 0.8 trigrams, 64 palms. With incredible speed, Neji dashed at Naruto. 2 palms. Neji announced as he struck Naruto. 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms. From the stands, Naruto's supports stared with worried looks as Naruto received the Hyuga's blows. 32 palms, 64 palms. The final blow sent Naruto to the ground. Naruto-kun, Kushina whimpered out. He's going to be okay, Masaki said as she rubbed Kushina's shoulder for comfort. Ichigo stayed quiet. It's over. I've pressed 64 of the chakra points around your body. You can no longer even stand. Neji said with a stern face. Naruto said nothing. He was on his knees, hunched over from the pain. It must be frustrating. Here, on your knees before my immutable strength. You must finally comprehend the power gap between you and I, believing that your dreams will come true if you just try hard enough. That's simply a fantasy. That was it. He couldn't take it anymore. Ichigo got up from his seat, startling Masaki and Kushina. Ichi-kun? Are you okay? Masaki asked. She could tell he wasn't listening, for he was staring down at Naruto and Neji. She reached up to grab his shirt, but before she could, Ichigo ran into the aisle where the stairs were. Ichigo, he could hear his mom shout. Ichigo ran to the metal gate that blocked spectators from entering the battlefield. Ichigo gripped the gate with great force. He leaned over the edge. He could see Naruto shaking even from where he was. Ichigo wasn't one to cause a ruckus. He stuck to himself. He kept to himself. But when he saw someone who was precious to him in some sort of trouble, he knew he had to do something. If only he had the power to protect Naruto, he would beat the shit out of this long-haired snob of the Hyuga. Ichigo knew he could only do one thing to help Naruto in this situation. He straightened out his posture and took a deep breath. "Naruto Teme," he shouted, causing the stadium to go quiet. All eyes were on him. Ichigo. Ino breathed out. She was shocked that Ichigo of all people was the one who was screaming Naruto's name. Hell, she was shocked to even see him at an event like this at all. "What is that idiot doing?" Sakura asked, just as shocked as Ino. From the VIP box, the third Hokage smirked. That's Masaki's child. Ichigo Kurosaki." The other genin and spectators stared at the orange-haired boy like he was crazy. Shikamaru, who knew Ichigo through Ino, was surprised like the rest. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Ichigo continued. "Didn't you make a vow? You promised to win. I believed in you. My mom did too, and your mom." Ichigo growled. "So what are you doing on the ground shaking like a baby? Get your ass up and fight. Prove to this prick that you're not a failure. Prove to him, and everyone else, that you're going to be Hokage one day. Get up and fight." Everyone stared at the boy with wide eyes, especially Kushina, Ino, Sakura, and his mother. "He really knows his way with words, Databane," Kushina giggled, wiping a lone tear out of her eye. "Yeah he does," Masaki chuckled. "There's part of the Ichigo I remember." Neji glared up at the orange-haired boy. "What a pest," he muttered. He brought his attention back to Naruto who, in the Hyuga's and everyone else's surprise, was getting up from the ground. The blonde-haired boy was panting. Shut up. Carrot Top." Naruto chuckled through his panting. "I'm not done yet." Ichigo gave him a rare toothy smile. "Go get him, blockhead," Ichigo laughed. "There's no way," Neji said in disbelief. His Byakugan deactivated. "Listen. Just give up, all right? There's no point in continuing. I don't have a grudge against you. Just forfeit." "Shut up," Naruto growled. "You may not have one against me, but I do for you. You're so strong. And yet you act like you know everything." Naruto took a second to catch his breath. "And when you were against Hinata, who was fighting so hard, you played those horrible mind games with her." "That's none of your business." Neji scowled. "You mocked Hinata," Naruto continued, "calling her a failure and claiming you could see her fate. I don't know anything about that stupid clan stuff. But I could never forgive a jerk who goes around calling people failures." Ichigo's face turned into a scowl. He knew what it was like to be called a failure. "Since you insist, I'll tell you about the hateful legacy of the Hyuga clan." Neji's eyes became hard. "There's a secret birthright ninjutsu passed down in the Hyuga main branch. It's a curse mark jutsu." Naruto's eyes widened at that. This curse mark represents a caged bird. It is proof that some people are bound to destinies from which they cannot escape. Neji reached up to his headband and tugged it off. When Naruto saw the markings on Neji's forehead, his eyes widened even more. No one said anything from the stands. Ichigo stayed quiet and observed. "One day when I was 4 years old, this abominable mark was branded onto my forehead using the curse mark jutsu," Neji explained. "That day, a grand celebration was being thrown in Konoha. There was a lavish ceremony in honor of the shinobi ruler of the Land of Clouds. Konoha had long waged war against his nation, but he had come to sign an alliance pact. Every shinobi in Konoha, from Genin to Junin, was in attendance. Except for one family. The Hyuga clan. Coincidentally that day was also the main branch's heir's birthday. It was Lady Hinata's 3rd birthday. My father and Lady Hinata's father were twin brothers. However, Lord Hiyashi, Hinata's father, entered the world first, and thus the eldest son, and a member of the main branch. My father, as second son, was relegated to the cadet branch. When Lady Hinata turned 3, I was branded with the mark and became a caged bird." "Why did they have to do that?" Naruto interrupted. "Splitting into main and cadets branches, what is it for?" What does that weird mark mean? This mark on my forehead is no decoration, Neji explained. This curse mark signifies an absolute threat of death imposed by the main branch upon the cadet branch. The secret techniques of the main branch can easily destroy the minds of those of the cadet branch. So of course, killing us is a simple task. And this curse mark only fades after death. After the secret of the Byakugan has been sealed away, it is a brilliant and efficient strategy. And then, the incident occurred. My father was murdered by the main branch. What? Naruto asked, his face full of shock. One night someone tried to kidnap Lady Hinata. Hiyashi rushed to the scene immediately and killed the perpetrator. And who was the bandit? It was the shinobi ruler of the Land of Clouds. It became clear that they had been after the secret of the Byakugan from the very beginning. However, even though their own ninja got himself caught and killed, the Land of the Clouds claimed Konoha had breached the contract and began making unreasonable demands. The war nearly resumed. But eager to avoid battle, an agreement was reached. Konoha made a backroom bargain with Cloud. Cloud demanded the corpse of Lord Hiyashi. Konoha accepted the condition. War was safely averted thanks to my father, who was sacrificed to protect the main branch. He was murdered to serve as Hyuga Hiyashi's body double. The only way to escape this curse mark is to die. Even though they were identical, the difference between being born first and being born second sealed each of their fates forever. And so. This match, too. The moment I was selected as your opponent, your fate was sealed. Your fate is to lose to me. Neji began to put his forehead protector back on. I can't even imagine how much pain you felt when you lost your father. But I think you're wrong to conclude that everyone's destinies are predetermined, Naruto protested. You're hopeless. Neji reactivated his Byakugan and charged at Naruto. He palmed Naruto in the chest, sending the blonde boy back. What a failure. Neji turned around to walk away. Don't turn your back. I won't run away. I never go back on my word. Naruto got up from the ground. I won't lose to someone like you. Naruto clasped his hands together. Naruto's chakra became visible. It was almost as if it was oozing out of his body. This chakra, Kushina exclaimed, a look of worry plastering her face. How did he learn to access the chakra of the nine tails? She thought for a moment, remembering a certain pervert was back in town. Damn it, Jiraiya. Kushina. How? Masaki asked in disbelief. When did he? Ichigo stared in awe at Naruto's power. It was flaring all around the blonde boy. It gave Ichigo chills. It was strong, dense. Yet so dark. Naruto's bruises and cuts faded away. There was an orange hue that surrounded Naruto. Here I come. Naruto jumped in the air, throwing shurikens at Neji while he floated in the air. Neji used his rotation to block the attacks. Naruto jumped onto the wall and used his chakra to stick to it. I may not understand the tragic destiny of the Hyuga clan or whatever, but if you think it's inescapable, fine. Then stop fighting. Naruto jumped off the wall, creating a small crater behind him. He ed his fist back, preparing to strike Neji. But when I become Hokage, I'll change the Hyuga clan. Naruto's fist collided with Neji's rotation, causing dust and debris to fly everywhere. A cloud of smoke covered the battlefield. Once the smoke cleared, it became visible that there were two craters in the ground. Naruto and Neji were in the craters. None of the spectators could tell which was which. Come on, you bastard. Ichigo gripped the fence tightly. I know you're not done yet. Get up. Please be okay, Naruto-kun, Kushina pleaded. He can do it, Kushina. Masaki reassured her. Finally, Neji stepped out of one of the craters. Everyone could now see Naruto curled up in the other crater. Sorry failure, Neji taunted. It's too bad, but this is reality. Neji felt movement underneath his feet. He looked down with wide eyes. The ground beneath him was cracking. Out from the ground shot Naruto, uppercutting Neji as he came out. Neji was sent flying back and collided with the ground. Blood dripped from Naruto's hand. From the crater where the other Naruto lay, a puff of smoke appeared. Another shadow clone? Ichigo was shocked. The kid is getting smarter, Ichigo smirked. In the middle of all of that, you managed to create a shadow clone. Your signature ninjutsu. That was careless of me, Neji said from the ground. I failed the academy graduation exam 3 times, Naruto confessed. Kushina and Masaki's faces dropped from that statement. They remembered the wave of emotions Naruto went through during that time. However, he still pushed through it in the end. The exam always tested the same ninjutsu. My absolute weakest ninjutsu. My weakest ninjutsu was the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto stared down at Neji with hard eyes. So shut up about destiny. You shouldn't whine about such stupid stuff. Unlike me. You're not a failure. Everyone went silent from that. After a few seconds, the proctor raised his hand in the air. The winner is Naruto Uzumaki. The audience went up in an uproar. Claps were heard all throughout the stadium. Kushina jumped up from her seat and pumped her fists in the air. I knew he could do it, Databane. She exclaimed happily. I'm still going to kill Jiraiya for teaching him how to use the fox, but for now I'll let Naruto-kun have his victory, she thought in the back of her mind. Masaki was also out of her seat. Go Naruto-kun, she clapped. Naruto looked up at Ichigo from the arena. The two stared at each other for a while. Naruto broke the stare and gave Ichigo a toothy smile. Naruto held up the peace sign and laughed. I told you, Carrot Top. Naruto laughed. Ichigo closed his eyes for a moment, a smile plastered on his face. He reopened his eyes. I knew you could do it, dumbass. XX The exams continued after Naruto and Neji's match, however adjustments were made to the matches. Sasuke and Gaara's match was postponed due to Sasuke not arriving on time. Up next was Shino vs Kankuro, but for some unknown reasons, Kankuro forfeited before the match even started. That meant it was time for Shikamaru vs. Temari. Ichigo was so engaged in the battle. He was annoyed by Shikamaru's normal lazy attitude, however he knew the Nara boy was a genius. It was insane to Ichigo. In the end, Shikamaru forfeited even after composing the perfect plan. Everyone in the stadium was dumbfounded, except for Choji. Then it was time. Sasuke vs Gaara. Sasuke finally appeared in a flashy whirlwind of leaves, alongside Kakashi. Ichigo hadn't been around the Uchiha for long, however the boy looked different to him. Ichigo couldn't tell what it was. The battle finally commenced. Ichigo's eyes could barely keep up with Sasuke's movements. It was incredible. Sasuke's speed was just insane. After the Uchiha landed a few blows on Gaara, the Sand Child created a dense ball of sand around himself. No one could tell what was going on the inside. Sasuke planned his next attack. He jumped back on the wall and weaved a few hand signs. He then held his left forearm. A bright ball started to form in Sasuke's left hand, and what seemed like lightning started to cackle around the ball. Sasuke jumped off the wall and charged at Gaara's sand ball. Sasuke landed the attack and cut through Gaara's defense. Gaara started screaming from inside the ball. Sasuke tried pulling his arm out, but he was stuck. He finally broke free and jumped back, and as he did so, a monstrous arm made of sand came out of Gaara's ball. The arm faded away, turning back into regular sand, and so did Gaara's ball. Gaara was holding his wounded shoulder and was panting. Something then caught Ichigo's eye. Feathers were falling from the sky. What the hell? He muttered. He looked around him to see the other spectators hunched over, as if they were asleep. Startled, he looked back at his mom and Kushina to see them with their hands clasped together. Release! They shouted in unison. Ichigo's eyes began to feel heavy. What the hell, he muttered. Ichigo then fell to his knees. What's going on? His eyes kept fluttering. Ichigo-kun. That was the last thing Ichigo heard before he fell into a deep sleep. Ichigo's eyes slowly opened. He was laying flat on a cold grass patch while staring up at a dark sky. The boy sat up and took in his surroundings. Or at least he tried to. A thick fog filled the air around him. He couldn't see anything that was more than 10 feet in front of him. Get up! Ichigo jumped slightly when he heard a deep voice call out to him. The owner of the voice was most definitely a man. He turned his head towards the direction of where he thought the voice was coming from. The orange-haired teen picked himself off of the ground. He started walking towards the voice. The mysterious land he was in was suspiciously quiet. The only thing he could hear was the grass crunching beneath his feet. What the hell is going on? Ichigo kept looking left and right, reassuring himself that he wouldn't be ambushed. The thick fog, along with the eerie quietness of his surroundings, made him anxious. Almost. There.
the voice said in an almost happy tone. Ichigo's brows knitted together. The voice didn't sound like it was in front of him, it sounded like it was inside of him.
Ichigo kept walking forward. Even with the voice telling him he was near, somewhere deep inside of Ichigo told him that he was going down the correct path. Ichigo walked another 50 feet before stopping. His eyes widened slightly when a tall, gray pillar occupied his view. He tilted his head up, trying to analyze how tall the pillar was. Unfortunately, the fog hindered the analysis. If Ichigo had to guess, he would say it was at least 40 feet tall. Inside, there was a large wooden door at the bottom of the pillar in front of Ichigo. The boy walked to the door. It didn't seem to have a handle on it, so the boy pushed away from him, causing the door to slowly slide open. It was dim and cold inside. Ichigo couldn't tell what was producing the dim light, but that was the least of his concerns. The only thing inside of the pillar was a spiral staircase that swirled to the top of the building. Ichigo already knew what he had to do without the voice's help. He started his journey up the stairs. It took him some time, considering how tall the pillar looked from the outside, but he made it to the top nonetheless. The staircase led an empty floor. There was a large rectangular hole in the wall in front of the boy, allowing one to see the landscape. However, the thick fog didn't allow Ichigo to do so. "You've finally made it." Ichigo's eyes widened slightly. This time the voice was coming from directly behind him. He swung around to face the voice. Ichigo's assumption was correct. The owner of the voice was a tall, lean-built man. He looked middle-aged. He had pale skin, long ragged black hair, high cheekbones, and a slight stubble on his chin. The man wore a pitch-black overcoat that reached down to his ankles, and matching black combat boots covered his feet. He also wore brown-tinted wraparound glasses. "Who are you? Do you know where I am?" Ichigo questioned. "Me? Who am I? That is a stupid question." "I am," the man answered. Ichigo's eyebrow rose. "I didn't quite catch that last part." It didn't reach. That's too bad. What are you talking about, old man?" "My voice. How many times do I need to call out for my voice to reach you?" The realization dawned on Ichigo. "So are you the one? In my dreams, the one calling out?" Ichigo's eyebrows knitted together. "Don't be foolish," the man retorted. "I'm not the only voice. You can hear him, can't you? He's getting restless. I can't control him for much longer." "Can't control who? Who is the other voice?" Ichigo questioned. The man stayed silent. He held a strong glare on Ichigo. Ichigo was becoming irritated. He wanted answers. "Answer me, old man," he growled out. The man said nothing. Only his glare intensified. "If you don't accept me soon, you will perish in the future." The man finally started. "They will come. They will come after you. Us. Your mother. Your power. They will finish what they started." "Who? Goddammit, stop beating around the bush." Ichigo yelled at the man. "Stop talking nonsense, old man. Tell me where I am. Tell me what the hell is going on." Ichigo stopped his rant when the man held up his hand. The man's palm was facing Ichigo. "There isn't much time left. I've made the first move. It's your turn now. Do not hesitate anymore. Just know, I am not your enemy. Him on the other hand, be wary." A black ring made of unfamiliar energy formed in front of the man's palm. "You will find the power to fight if you find your resolve. Find it, Ichigo. Accept it." Before Ichigo could react, the black ring shot from the man's hand with incredible speed. Ichigo's eyes almost burst from his sockets when the ring struck him in the chest. He didn't feel any pain, however the force of the attack sent the boy flying backwards through the giant rectangular hole in the wall. Ichigo screamed as he was sent into the air. The boy's momentum changed from backwards to downwards. He was falling down the side of the pillar. He didn't know what to do in this situation. He couldn't stop himself from falling. He couldn't even try to brace himself for impact or even try to land in a cushioned area. The fog became thicker around him. His vision was gray. He could tell he was still falling, but he didn't know how much longer he would be falling for. The boy shut his eyes tightly, preparing himself for impact. The only thing he could hear at the moment was his own heartbeat. His heartbeat flooded his hearing. It was even louder than his screaming. He waited. And waited. And waited, but nothing came. He opened his eyes slowly. It didn't feel like he was falling anymore.
In fact, he was very much on the ground. He was back in Konoha Stadium. His vision was blurry and his ears were ringing. After a few seconds, his senses started to clear up. The teen realized he had been relocated. He could tell because of the VIP box. He was facing its left side instead of the right. He was sitting against the wall of the spectator box. Ichigo-kun. Ichigo couldn't see her, but he could tell it was his mother. She sounded distraught and shocked.
The orange-haired teen blinked slowly a few times before gripping his head with his hand. How long was I out for? It felt like he had been asleep for hours. He's awake. How did he break out of the genjutsu? Ichigo identified the voice as Kushina. Masaki, along with Kushina, Sakura, and Kakashi were at the edge of the spectator box. All four were surprised to see the boy awake. Masaki ran up the steps to her child. The woman knelt next to her child and placed her hands on his shoulders. Ichigo-kun? Can you hear me? How are you feeling? She asked while rubbing his shoulders.
I'm fine, Mom, Ichigo said, slightly irritated. The orange-haired teen slowly stood up. He used the wall as support. Masaki stood up with him. What the heck is going on? He questioned. He looked around and saw that a very large portion of the exam spectators were still knocked out. Naruto and Shikamaru were among the bunch. The two shinobi were a few feet to his left. Ichigo brought his attention back to his mom. She was staring directly into his eyes. Her own eyes were hard and stern. Ichigo-kun. How did you release the genjutsu?
Ichigo flinched from her serious tone. I don't know what you mean. 1 second I was watching the fight with Sasuke and Gaara, and the next second I'm on the ground. He lied through his teeth. He knew the old man had something, or everything, to do with his awakening. Masaki, Kushina said, coming up to the Kurosakis alongside Kakashi and Sakura. I know you have questions, but right now isn't the time. We need to head into the village and find out what the hell is happening. We need to find Sasuke, too. He ran after Gaara and the other Sannin. Kakashi added. Sakura and Pakun, Kakashi's dog summon, went over to Naruto and Shikamaru. Sakura released the genjutsu on Naruto, and Pakun bit down on Shikamaru's ankle, causing the boy to jolt up and yelp. The adults and Ichigo sweat dropped at the Nara. He was awake the entire time. A sound nin appeared next to Ichigo, a kunai in his hand. Masaki and Kushina sprung to action, both of them punching the sound nin in the stomach, sending the man through the wall behind Ichigo. Ichigo and Naruto gulped. Their respective mothers' strength was incredible. All right. Kakashi started. Naruto, Sakura, Shikamaru. I have a new mission for you. Chase after Sasuke and stop him. Then find somewhere safe and wait until you receive new orders. Wait. What's going on? What happened to Sasuke? Naruto asked. Sakura-chan will explain everything on the way, Kushina replied. Listen to your sensei. Once you find Sasuke-kun, find someplace safe. Ichigo turned to his mother. What can I do, Mom? Masaki looked at her son in the eyes. She held a sad look. She knew her son wanted to be of use, but she couldn't risk it. She turned to Naruto. Naruto-kun. Please take Ichi-kun to the nearest shelter and... No. Ichigo protested. Screw that. I can't just sit helplessly in a shelter while everyone's out here fighting. Masaki placed both of her hands on her son's shoulders. Ichigo. Listen to me. I know you want to fight, but we don't have time for this. Please. Just listen to me. Go to the shelter. You're going to get yourself hurt or worse if you try to fight. Ichigo frowned and gritted his teeth. He stared at the ground. Fine, he mumbled. Naruto came up to the duo and grabbed his friend's arm. Don't worry, Oba-san. I'll make sure Carrot Top is safe. Dadbeo. He flashed a smile. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Masaki smiled back. Naruto then grabbed Ichigo and jumped out of the hole that Masaki and Kushina created. Sakura, Shikamaru, and Pakun followed suit. Kushina, Masaki, and Kakashi watched as the 4 teens and Pakun run off into the distance. He'll be all right, Kushina reassured Masaki. Masaki nodded her head in agreement. Might Guy appeared next to Kakashi. The sound nin just keep coming, he informed them. We need to clear out as many as we can. Masaki's eyes narrowed at his words. I guess it can't be helped. She flicked her left wrist slightly, and a gray chain with a pentacle attached to it fell out of Masaki's sweater sleeve. The pentacle then glowed a bluish hue, and energy began to swirl around her hand. Moments later, the energy flattened out and compressed into the shape of a bright blue bow. I thought I went into retirement, but who am I kidding? XX Ichigo was by far one of the most fit civilians in all of Konoha. He kept his body in shape, he ran regularly, and he watched his diet. He thought he was pretty fast for a regular kid, but goddamn. These freaking ninja had way more endurance and speed than he did. He could barely keep up with Naruto and the others even when they weren't even going their full speed. The four teens and summon ran through the streets of Konoha. There were ninjas fighting left and right. Civilians were running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Ichigo and the others could see multiple giant snake summons in the distance wrecking the village. The group stopped at the outside gates of Konoha's main hospital. There's an emergency shelter about 10 yards that way, Shikamaru informed, pointing down one of the streets. Ichigo nodded his head. He turned his head towards Naruto. Good luck, you guys, stay safe. The nin nodded their heads and ran into the direction of Sasuke and the others. Ichigo's eyes narrowed as their figures faded in the distance. He turned his head towards the direction of the emergency shelter. I can't just sit around and do nothing. There are villagers who still need help. Ichigo made his decision. If he couldn't fight the enemies, he would help other villagers caught in the wreckage. The young boy ran towards the destruction that the snake summons created. The East Gate. Unbeknownst to Ichigo, 12 sound shinobi stood on top of the Konoha hospital, watching his every move.
That's the boy, the sound nin in the middle of the group said. Orochimaru-sama ordered us to capture him alive, along with the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Split up. 3 with him, 9 with the other brats.
3? That seems like overkill for a weak child, one of the nin chimed in. Orochimaru-sama said to be cautious with this one, the leader said. He said this one could explode at any moment. Explode? Another nin asked. That's all Orochimaru-sama said. Enough talking. Team A. Get the genin brats before they catch up with the Uchiha. Team B. Let's go. The dubbed Team A vanished, headed towards Naruto and the others. The remaining 3 sound nin followed Ichigo.
XX. Ichigo finally made it to the East Gate. He had to be extremely cautious on his route. Sound and Sand nin flooded the area. Thankfully, Leaf nin were fighting most of them off. His body was exhausted, but he couldn't stop now. He had his own mission to complete. He looked around the area to see most of the buildings destroyed. Part of the East Gate had been completely taken down.
Papa. Mama. Someone cried out. Ichigo turned towards the voice. It was a young girl. She looked to be about 6 years old. She had dark purple hair that was tied in 2 pigtails. She wore purple overalls that matched her hair. Ichigo ran over to the girl. Hey, listen to me. Everything's going to be okay. Where are your parents? Ichigo reached out and put his hands on her shoulders, trying to comfort her. The girl's sobs decreased. Mama AA and Papa went to watch the exams, the girl explained through sniffles. Ichigo nodded his head. Okay. Come with me. I'll take you to a safe place. But Mama and Papa. The girl cried out. Don't worry about them, Ichigo said. I'm sure they're okay. They're probably at the shelter waiting for you. Ichigo finished with a smile. If her parents went to the exams, they should still be under the genjutsu. The enemy didn't seem to attack the spectators, only the Konoha nin.
Oh okay. The girl sniffled. Let's go, Oni-chan. Ichigo knelt down so the girl could ride on his back. When the girl was on, Ichigo headed off to find more survivors. He wanted to find and help as many as he could before he headed to the shelter. Most of the area was already destroyed. Dead bodies of both shinobi and Konoha civilians flooded the streets. Ichigo's blood started to boil. All of these innocent people. Dead because of these damn shinobi. Ichigo mentally shook his head in disgust. Ichigo ran as fast as he could through the streets. It seemed like most of the civilians either evacuated already, or they were dead. Ichigo stopped dead in his tracks when 2 sound nin appeared out of nowhere in front of him. They both held kunai in their right hands. You're coming with us, kid, one of them said. Ichigo took a few steps back. He could feel the girl on his back shaking with fear. Don't worry, he whispered to her. Just stay quiet and hold on tight.
Ichigo's eyes widened when he heard a deep voice chuckle behind him. He turned his head slightly to see it was the girl who chuckled. "I'm not the one who's worrying, kid." The girl's body poofed into a huge cloud of smoke. Ichigo grunted when he was kicked to the ground. The puff of smoke cleared and 3 sound nin occupied his vision. His eyes widened from the realization. Transformation jutsu. Ichigo pushed himself off of the ground and shuffled away from the 3 sound nin. His eyes narrowed at them. "We won't hurt you if you don't struggle," the nin who Ichigo previously thought was a helpless girl said. Ichigo glanced around at the ground near his feet. He was trying to find a weapon, or at least something that could protect him. He noticed a large rock next to him and grabbed it. He got into a fighting position and glared at the 3 nin. The one in the middle just laughed. "You don't seriously think you can win, do you?" he taunted. Ichigo said nothing. He only glared. He could feel his heart rate skyrocket. His adrenaline rose and his body started shaking. He knew he couldn't win against the 3 of them. They were trained killers. He was just a normal kid, but he couldn't give up. He charged at the 3 men, swinging his arm at them, rock in hand. The 3 men dodged easily. The leader of the group jumped behind Ichigo and kicked his left leg, causing the team to fall on his right knee. The boy turned his head, but when he did, the leader's fist connected with the boy's cheek. Ichigo's face connected with the ground. Blood spilled out of his mouth and nose, and his cheek was starting to bruise. "It baffles me why Orochimaru-sama would even want a weakling like you. You're nothing but trash," the sound nin spat. His 2 teammates stood behind him. They watched as the teen picked himself off of the ground slowly. The leader walked closer to Ichigo and kicked Ichigo in his side, causing the boy to roll over on his back. "You," Ichigo spat. The sound nin laughed at the boy's attitude. "You're lucky that I was told to take you alive, or else you'd be gutted like a fish by now." "More Konoha nin." One of the sound yelled as 2 Konoha nin appeared atop one of the damaged buildings. Ichigo used their distracted states as a way to escape. He shot up from the ground and ran from the sound nin. "Goddamn!" The sound nin leader cursed. "I'll go after the boy." "You handle those 2, he ordered. His teammates nodded their heads and engaged in battle with the Konoha nin. Before the leader could chase Ichigo, another Konoha nin appeared before him and threw 2 shurikens at him. The sound nin dodged them and equipped a kunai. More Konoha scum. The Konoha nin jumped between the fading form of Ichigo and the sound nin. "He can't get that far. I'll deal with this bastard first." The sound nin leapt into battle, aiming to kill his opponent. Ichigo hid in a dark alleyway. He was panting heavily. He could feel bruises forming on his back, and the bruise on his cheek swelled up to the size of a fist. He was so anxious. He honestly thought he was going to die back there. He was thankful that the Konoha nin showed up when they did. He was safe for now, or so he thought. "You done running, brat?" Ichigo's eyes widened when he heard the sound nin's voice behind him. It was the leader again. Ichigo started running again. He ran back into the streets. He ran as fast as he could. "Running will get you nowhere," he heard from behind him. How pathetic. Ichigo tripped over some rubble. He fell to his knees, but tried to get up as quickly as possible. "Why am I so weak? All I can do is run." Ichigo's eyes widened when a hand appeared out of the corner of his eye. The sound nin gripped Ichigo's shoulder and pulled him back. The teen fell on his back. "Is this all the resolve I've got?" Ichigo watched from the ground as the sound nin threw his fist to Ichigo's face. Ichigo covered his head and rolled out of the way of the enemy's attack. Pathetic. Pathetic. Ichigo pushed himself off the ground and started running again. Shameful. A coward beyond redemption, Ichigo grunted as his legs gave out. He felt incredible pain in his left thigh. He looked down to see a kunai embedded in his thigh. Ichigo fell to his knees. He turned his head towards the sound nin. He could tell he was smirking beneath his mask. The nin slowly made his way to Ichigo. Ichigo turned his head straight forward. He expected to see the road ahead of him, but instead a tall figure dressed in black filled his view. His eyes widened when he saw the figure's face. It was the old man from his dream. It's you. Old man," Ichigo breathed out. "Why do you run?" "Ichigo?" the old man asked, staring down at Ichigo. Ichigo's eyes became hard. I'm too weak," he admitted. "If you keep running, you will die." Abandon your fear. Face forward. You have the power to fight. You just need to find it, and accept it, the old man said. His eyes traveled to the sound nin, then back to Ichigo. I will give you the first push. I will awaken your power. I will awaken the blood that sleeps within you. Just accept me. The man held his hand out to Ichigo. Ichigo's thoughts were traveling a million miles per minute. How could he trust this man? Who was he? The blood and power within him? The man's words rung in his head. He wanted the power. He needed the power. Ichigo slowly raised his own hand and accepted the man's hand. I accept. The sound nin's eyebrows rose. Talking to yourself, huh? Going crazy? Don't worry, you'll be even crazier when Orochimaru-sama has his hands on you. The sound nin brought his right hand up and balled it into a fist. He threw a punch at the back of Ichigo's head, aiming to knock out the boy. His fist collided with the boy's head, and to the nin's surprise, his hand broke upon impact. What the hell? The nin jumped 8 yards away from the boy. It felt like he punched an iron wall. He held his broken and bloody hand with his other hand. The boy did and said nothing. He was just on his knees, facing away from the nin. The nin's eyes widened when the boy pulled the kunai out from his leg. Blood didn't spill from the wound. The nin could see Ichigo's veins. Blue veins traveled all over Ichigo's legs, arms, and neck. The boy stood up from the ground and turned around to face the nin. The nin's eyes widened even further when he saw the boy's eyes. They were glowing bright blue. It was like the boy was piercing into the nin's soul with his eyes only. The same blue veins traveled the front of the boy's neck. You look scared, shinobi trash. Ichigo taunted. His voice was firm and steady. I'm done running now. But you should start. Ichigo's veins switched from a faint blue to a meek shade of red. The boy disappeared from the nin's view and reappeared in front of him in an instant. Ichigo ed his veiny fist back and struck the ninja in the stomach, sending him back a few yards. The nin coughed up blood as he collided with the ground. His breathing became heavy and his mouth tasted like metal. The nin then couldn't breathe. It felt like an invisible force was holding him down and choking him. All he could do was gag heavily as he stared up at the bright blue sky. Ichigo stood over the man who was trying to capture him. The boy said nothing. He just stared into the man's eyes who were filled with fear. Where the hell did this boy's power come from? Was this what Orochimaru meant by explode? Why the hell couldn't he move? A wave of emotions soared through the nin's head. Anger. Surprise. Hatred. Fear. The nin didn't know what it was, but something told him that he was going to die right then and there. Was it instinct? Maybe? He couldn't tell. But whatever it was right. The last thing the nin saw was Ichigo's bright, piercing blue eyes. Before his world turned to black, the end. Now we will see you in the next video.